Hello Internet! We are going to watch today from Film Theory, the giant monster hiding in Shang Chi. It repeats it. You know, we love Film Theorists. We're going to watch this. You know how we do. Shang Chi was a great trailer.
Wow, that Shang-Chi trailer looks really cool. After conquering almost every other action movie genre, Marvel is finally doing martial arts. What a great idea.
Says the white
why
guy.
they didn't try this before. I mean, feels so
I forgot how terrible it was. Hey, Louis Tan.
Wire work and dojos. So weird that they have never once tried to do this before. Yep, very first time.
Oh, no, Danny.
Hope it goes well for him.
Hey man, Daredevil had great action, even though it's not the same kind of fantastical element. It's great.
Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show that wants to challenge your smash style against our fist of the subscribe button. That's my overly elaborate way of saying subscribe to this channel. You know, Marvel's upcoming Shang-Chi, or as MCU bigwig Kevin Feige puts it,
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
So Shang-Chi is the pronunciation I'm gonna be rolling with today. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is a lot more than just the MCU's sincere apology for the existence of Iron Fist.
I thought the Iron Fist was a great warrior. You fight like a child throwing a tantrum.
Review of that show in a nutshell. It's also the first MCU release.
You're taking so much time to bag on it.
2.5 years ago. And before that, it was Black Panther 3 years ago. Just saying, it has been a long time since we've seen some new faces in this franchise. It'll also be Big Mickey's latest shot at getting a foothold in the ever-expanding Chinese box office, while also serving as a much-needed
That's a touchy subject right now.
in this universe. So yeah, a lot is gonna be riding on this one. But in addition to all that other stuff, the reason I'm talking about it here today on the channel is that it's also a big mystery. You see, Shang-Chi is a fairly obscure character whose backstory, front story, and really his entire thing absolutely needed a full rebuild for this movie released in the more culturally sensitive times of 2021.
Especially
Culturally sensitive times, and it's already having cultural sensitive issues over in China right now.
might not get released in China for not being culturally appropriate enough.
They can't win with Shang-Chi, man.
Oh boy.
It ain't gonna happen.
And considering that Disney has everything locked down tighter than Scrooge McDuck's Bitcoin password,
We don't know anything about the actual story
Crypto,
of this
invest.
movie. Or do we? That's right, Internet. Theory Master Matt Pat is skipping your instruction all the way ahead to the 36th chamber and cracking the biggest secrets of the first MCU Kung Fu movie. Today, I'm here to predict Shang-Chi 4 months before it's actually released, what it's probably about, who these people are, why it's really called the Ten Rings, where those rings actually come from, and how I predict Marvel has a giant kaiju-sized surprise waiting in the wings at the end of all that kicking. Godzilla, get ready to eat your heart out. And considering the winning streak we've been on lately when it comes to Marvel theories, I'm putting the spoiler warning right now. First things first, who is Shang-Chi? Well, in the 1970s, Chinese kung fu films exploded into a big pop culture fad, thanks in part to two converging forces. The first was the absolute mega
Enter that dragon!
The second was independent movie theaters opting to screen
Dragon Master!
because they were relatively cheap.
I haven't seen 36 Chamber.
Just as excited though. Young hit audience for the genre. And Marvel Comics, working under the motto of "we also enjoy money," wanted their own martial arts themed superhero. They started by trying to get the rights to Kung Fu, a TV series that was airing at the time. But when Warner Brothers said no, they had to make up their own guy, and thus Shang-Chi was born. He's a Chinese master of innumerable hand-to-hand fighting and weapon styles, so skilled that his abilities border on the supernatural. But as far as Marvel heroes go, he's actually pretty normal. He's a kung fu guy and he mostly does kung fu things. So what's he gonna be doing in this movie? Well, according to Toy Leaks, yes, Toy Leaks, we can get a good sense of what's actually gonna be going on here. The plot,
That real?
as you might expect, involves Shang-Chi
maybe.
working to take down the crime syndicate and terrorist organization, the Ten Rings.
A lot of
group
things
that's
get leaked
been
to
kicking around
toys
in
now.
MCU's background since the first Iron Man.
They speak Arabic, Urdu, Dari, Pashto, Mongolian, Farsi, Russian.
Who are these people?
They called themselves the Ten Rings.
And the
There
dragon
was
is in the
martial
billboard.
artists like Death Dealer and Razor Fist, along with Shang-Chi's sister Zhai Ling, with whom his relationship is complicated, to say the least. But the real big thing here, and the reason fans who know their comics lore did about 5 spit takes when they heard the Ten Rings part of the title, is that Shang-Chi has himself some major daddy issues, like most of the superheroes in the MCU. And in this version, that daddy's name is gonna be the Mandarin.
Did you know that fortune cookies aren't even Chinese? They're made by Americans based on the Japanese recipes.
Hey,
Bloody hell, bloody hell.
No, not him, but also, yes, kinda him. Now, the Mandarin is a long-beloved bad guy to a few generations of Marvel comic fans. He was basically Iron Man's on-again, off-again main nemesis in the comics for a lot of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But as cultural awareness has evolved over time, he's become increasingly problematic. There's just no getting around the fact that he mainly came into being as a pretty iffy Chinese villain stereotype during the era when Iron Man was Marvel's de facto anti-communist superhero, and most of his enemies were just stand-ins for either Soviet or Chinese communist threats. Very, very stereotypical stand-ins. That's why the various Iron Man adaptations over the years have tried to find ways to work around the problematic parts of the character, while still getting him in there somehow, in some form. The 90s Iron Man cartoon gave him green skin and downplayed the exaggerated Orientalism of his aesthetic.
I just love how they're trying so hard. I'm watching this progression.
And Iron Man 3 infamously reimagined the character even more radically as a globalized amalgam of hyped up foreign threats to the US,
And
who turns
definitely
out
not
to be a
Asian.
made-up marketing illusion.
My name's Trevor Slattery.
What are you?
I'm an actor. Just a role. The Mandarin, see, it's not real.
And the real Mandarin was, well, he was an evil weapons tycoon who also had fire powers?
It was always me, Tony. Right from the start.
Justice for Aldrich Killian.
A weird call on multiple levels. Some people love
I think you just gotta make him a stereotypical Asian guy.
Go the opposite direction, make him more stereotypical.
Cast like Nicolas Cage to be the Mandarin. All right.
Yeah.
Look, we're not gonna satisfy anyone. You might as well stick to your comics origins. Make it as racist as possible.
Yeah, this is historical fiction, and we gotta represent the accurate history.
I hate when they change things from the comics. Woke culture's ruining my racism.
Woke culture, which has only existed for about 5 years now, has really been wrecking these comics for the last 30 to 40 years.
No, that's all jokes. Although I would love to see someone actually attempt it and then get a lot of hate. It would be hilarious to me.
Some fan film. We're doing the true Mandarin.
I am the Mandarin. Like, just that some guy comes out, it's the most stereotypical.
And it's a white guy.
I have 10 ring. Yeah, it's just like a clear white dude, just doing those stereotypical shit. It just makes me laugh. I think that someone would attempt it.
Some people loved the twist, but others really didn't. And so Marvel split the difference with a follow-up that I predict not many of you.
not even the hardest of hardcore Marvelites have watched. Marvel One-Shot All Hail the King, a 2014
I love that one.
American short film released direct to video as a part
Justin
of
Hammer's
War
in
of
it,
the
too.
Dark World. Oh, that's it. That's why no one saw this thing.
Oh, it's the fan base. Kiss my rings.
The short film is indeed short. It's only 10 minutes, but it has some really awesome one-liners.
You're not capable of pulling that trigger, Mr. Slattery.
I'm an out-of-work actor, love. You've no idea what I'm capable of. And thanks to the CBS network, I'm pretty good with a handgun.
As well as a special appearance from everyone's favorite arms dealer, Justin Hammer.
Tony and I. Tony's cool. Both brothers in arms, you know. Literally, we're both arms dealers.
But the big twist is that it ends with an ominous cliffhanger implying a real Mandarin actually has existed this entire time.
But you took his name, and now he wants it back.
No, sorry. I still don't get it.
And after 7 long years, that Mandarin seems to finally be making his appearance in Shang-Chi.
It's only been 7
let's
years?
talk about
Damn.
the connection back to this new movie. Remember how Marvel thought that they needed to
Feels like
license
a lifetime
that Kung
ago.
Fu show to sell a martial arts comic? Well, when they couldn't get that, they instead chose to license the publishing rights to a famous Chinese villain character. And then they wrote Shang-Chi's origin
Good
as
old
that
Fu
villain's
Manchu.
rebellious good guy's son. The character, the fiendish Dr. Fu Manchu. Not much better than the Mandarin. The recurring bad guy in a series of pulp adventure novels.
And Nicolas Cage call wasn't
Century,
far
one
off.
of the most popular villain characters in all of fiction. A super intelligent criminal mastermind who dabbled in the occult and mad science with designs of taking over the world. Just an absurd amount of the supervillain tropes that we now take for granted in terms of secret layers, evil plots, henchmen, booby traps, mad science labs, torture chambers. All of it either originate or were largely popularized by this one guy. He was also an absurdly gross anti-Asian stereotype, as you can obviously tell. Either way, Marvel lost the rights to actually mention that Foom was Shang-Chi's father well before they ever felt obligated to be less racist about their multiple evil Chinese science wizard characters. So now all of these events are coming together so that Wenwu, the true Mandarin, is filling the role of Shang-Chi's dad. So ultimately, the plot of this thing is good guy Shang-Chi rebelling against evil crime lord Wenwu dad, which brings us then to the 10 rings themselves. Now, in the comics, the Mandarin has historically worn 10 rings of power that each grant a different super ability. Ice, fire, electricity, vortex, aka wind, white light, black light, which you never want to use in a motel room, psychic, impact beam, disintegration, and matter rearranger. Pretty much the Infinity Gauntlet again, but with some extra Captain Planety powers mixed in, because, you know, now there's a whole other hand they have to fill up. But in the trailer for Shang-Chi,
Rings
they
look
don't
tight.
appear to be rings, rather they appear to be metal bands worn around the villain's arms.
They're still
And
rings.
this is
They're
supported by the
ring-shaped.
toy release, where we see Wenwu showing off the rings wrapped around each of his forearms. Now, that is a pretty big change, but it's one that comes with a few logical explanations. Shang-Chi is a martial arts film grounded in the tradition of Chinese Kung Fu, and Iron Ring style is a thing in both the folklore and reality of Chinese martial arts. Southern Shaolin masters who practice rooted stances like horse style and the famous Hung Gar technique are known to use traditional training methods where heavy iron rings are worn on the arms for strength and muscle building, and to master the movement of physical force through the moving and stopping of limbs. You know earthbenders like Toph and Avatar Airbender? Well, their wide, low-to-the-ground stances are very much tied to traditional Hung Gar technique, and Chinese Kung Fu movies have often depicted Southern Shaolin and Hung Gar-associated folk heroes using combat versions of the rings as actual weapons in battle.
This
like in the film
police
Kung Fu
story.
Hustle. So, okay, not a huge leap to
Kung
imagine
Fu
the
Hustle.
2021 live-action movie Mandarin's 10 Rings being adapted into something more like Hung Gar fighting rings.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
It does raise the question, if they're on his arms and not his fingers, don't they stop being rings and become the 10 bracelets? And
Or
sure, a line
bangles.
like that could easily be a tension-breaking quip a Marvel character could drop in the middle of a fight, or, here's my big prediction for this one, friends, they're still rings, but they're not rings made for human fingers. What if they happen to be rings that were once worn by a
There you go. Yeah, like the origin.
Hear me out here, guys. What's something else the MCU hasn't gone and fully given us yet? A giant monster character. Sure, there have been a few giants here and there, the Frost Giants, most notably Surtur at the end of Thor Ragnarok.
I mean, let's slow down for a second. I love the idea of incorporating like the bracelets by giving it to that traditional Kung Fu Shaolin fighting aesthetic that we've seen in several movies over the years. It's been a part of culture as well. So I think that's a neat way to do it, because I think rings could be really goofy and cheesy, especially when they're going for more of like a grounded take. I don't know if the right word's grounded, but you know, not as
More
like,
grounded in tradition.
yeah, exactly. And they really want this to feel like an Asian kung fu film. Yeah. And so I think going down that path is really cool. But yeah, I mean, like in a version of the comics, when he does get the rings, they are connected to Fang Foom already, right? So and there are a lot of rumors have been going around that Fang Foom might appear in this movie.
I don't see how that would be possible.
But overall, a shocking lack
Of big, oversized creatures for these godlike characters to fight. And while the other Marvel martial arts thing did a bunch of big talk about a dragon, they apparently couldn't afford to show it, ever. But Shang-Chi has both money and an excuse to have a giant dragon turn up. And not just because the only thing that you'll find more of in Chinese folklore than martial arts masters is dragons. You see, there's a dragonish candidate sitting in the Marvel Comics canon who's tangled with Shang-Chi before and would fit the bill perfectly. And his name is Fang Foom. You can't
There he
make that
is.
stuff up. Well, obviously you can. Someone clearly did at some point in history, but that's what we're going with. Originally created as part of Marvel's pre-superhero crazy stuff from space stories, Fin Fang Foom is a sort of humanoid-shaped dragon who's actually an alien visitor named Makluan. Originating in the 60s and revived by Marvel writers in the 70s, pretty much for the sole reason that his name is fun to say, Fin Fang Foom has been all over the place. So he's a dragon, kinda. So what? Well, what makes him a perfect fit to show up here in this movie, in this specific context, is that the comics origin of the Mandarin's rings usually frame them as not being magical or supernatural, but rather advanced alien technology that the man who'd later become the Mandarin found on an archaeological expedition in China. So what if Fin Fang Foom not only brings in the dragon element, but also happens to be the Ten Rings' original alien owner? Seems like I'm stretching a lot. Right?
Get those hammies loose.
Remember those toy leaks I mentioned earlier? Both the Funko Pop and Hasbro lines of toys feature a dragon named the Great Protector.
Come
Heck,
on.
even Lego has a dragon coming out of this movie somehow. And would you know it, 10 fingers, 5 on each hand. So yeah, I'm calling the shot here, friends.
The toy leak showed it?
And this guy, I was gonna say, the drawings have 4 fingers, toys got 5.
Dude, these toy leak companies, hatch out something with the studio,
With
dude.
Marvel especially,
God,
because lately,
they leaked
cap suit, like this now.
There's
Mecha Godzilla.
I like covering leaks to a different degree, where it's like, it's still in theory realm.
Yeah.
But we don't know 100% yet, we don't know 100%. When you do a toy leak, 9 out of 10 times, it's pretty much a confirmation.
Market.
That's what it is. Damn. Those toy leaks kick you right in the ass, don't they? Mm-hmm. It's a real shame.
Yeah, there's got to be a way to guard against those spoilers particularly.
What? How come Feige's not cracking down on this shit?
You've got to control these press releases.
Seriously, though, man. Gosh.
Master Matt Pat predicts the Mandarin's big bicep-hugging 10 rings are actually the fancy finger decor of Fin Fang Foom, or some other giant dragon, and that using them will either summon, control, defeat, or maybe free the MCU's first kaiju-sized sentient monster where the mandatory sky beam is gonna mark the spot. Then again, it is all just a theory. A film theory. And cut. Also subscribe to let me know how wrong I was when this movie eventually comes out. Though, gotta admit, I'm feeling good about this one.
Nah,
Have you
you're
hit that
probably
subscribe
right.
button yet? Great. See
You're
you all
probably
next
right.
week.
I would like Fin Fang Foom, or if whatever reinvention they do of the dragon and whatever, if they call him Fin Fang Foom or not. I would want Fin Fang Foom to be in the world, to say the least. I want the dragon to exist. I don't know about the dragon showing up in this movie as the big villain in the third act. For just the impression I'm getting now, you're already introducing this tournament of sorts, or introduce this character to this other world, and you gotta have it grounded in a personal take between the Mandarin and Shang Chi. You gotta have that be the central focus, and you just have some big dragon coming at the end, or maybe if it's alluded throughout the movie, or if they treat it kind of like the Goro, people are referencing Mortal Kombat for this, so maybe it's the Goro, the way the 95 version used him. I don't know. I'm conflicted. I love the idea of Fin Fang Foom being in the world and being set up. I don't know about him showing up and you defeat the Mandarin, or in the final battle, just the dragon shows up and you're oh, we gotta fight this dragon now.
Yeah, maybe if they did some kind of cutaway, past lore sequence or some kind of historical flashback or whatever to the origins of the Ten Rings or something, and then maybe if they tease the actual return of coming of Fin Fang Foom in this universe at the end or something. Because I keep having to remind myself, this is ostensibly a fighting tournament movie.
Yeah.
So where would this character fit? Quite literally into that, and also with Shang-Chi's powers and whatnot, it seems like it would also be kind of an odd. He seems like he would need a lot of backup.
And Shang-Chi has the ability to clone himself, and no one really touches on that for some reason. It was later introduced power. But that's just a thing. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here. What did you think about this film theory video? Subscribe to The Real Rejects, click that notification bell, hit that like button. Last but not least, buddy, this should come as no surprise to you. Who do you think I'm going to shout out?
I think it's going to be JT.
That's right, because you're the Asian one.
You're the Asian one.
You're the Asian one.
You are our Hawaiian Japanese best friend of Patreon.
They're not even Japanese in Shang-Chi.
They're not even Japanese in Shang-Chi.
Maybe there's a Japanese guy in Shang-Chi.
Well, Trevor Slattery said the thing about the fortune cookie recipe being from Japan, so there you go. I miss you, JT. I miss Idea Day. I miss your their warm, calming
that's what
presence.
JT stands for. Japanese tits.
Yeah.
He's got great nips.
Oh, you should
JT.
see them. We've gotten to see them a couple times, and I wish we could share them here on this video, but we don't want to get restricted.
I've always said Japanese men have got the best nipples, and JT honors that. Greatest nipples in all of the Patreon.
Wear that at like a badge of honor. 2 badges of honor.